acting like you're bouncing a basketball. I mean, it's not really anything deeper than that. Bounce the basketball hits the floor, the basketball comes up, you bounce the basketball again, right? So, hopefully you guys can see this. I mean, all that we're doing when we hit the drum is really, if I were to let go, it would be this. That's what's happening, right? All I'm doing is controlling the stick with my back three fingers, okay? You got the fulcrum that Bob mentioned, and then the back three fingers. And I do know that there are some folks out there that enjoy the fingers out type of vibe. That's really not for me. So I like to have as much control over the drumstick as I can, okay? So again, throw the stick down, it bounces back. See how loose that is? There's absolutely no tension here, none. I have another friend, real dear friend of mine, that implements this stroke in his program. His name is Dean Gronemeyer, and what he calls this is the free rebound. And really, there's not a better word or terminology for it. It's free. Everything is, you're letting the drumstick work for you. It's coming back. It's bouncing back. Hitting the head, bouncing back. Right? Okay. So just keep in mind, and an easy exercise is, and everybody probably knows, is just doing eights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Guys, I want to say this. Each music, just like each language, English has its own punctuation. It has its own grammar structure. It's got its own little set of rules that go along with that language, that specific language. Same thing with Spanish. Same thing with French, German. Each set of languages have their own little rules and regulations that you kind of have to adhere to for people to be able to understand you. Okay? And it's the same with music. It's absolutely no different with music. If you're playing a jazz gig, you don't necessarily want to whip out the 16th notes or 32nd notes. That's not appropriate for that style. Matter of fact, let's just do some blues changes. And I'm going to do something. When you hear me do something inappropriate for this style, I want you to raise your hands, and we'll stop. Okay? Okay. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. It kind of hits you in the face with a bat. You know what I mean? You can really tell when something is not stylistically the way to go. And I'm not saying this is exclusive. I'm just saying in general, what I would tend not to do is play 16th note fills when I'm trying to swing. Okay? Let's go same changes. Let's do a montuno. Okay, now I'm going to do like a Latin type of groove. Latin type of groove, and I want you to, again, raise your hands when you hear something that sounds a little bit funky. Okay? 1, I have a click on the downbeat of beat 1 in measure 1, and I don't have another click until the 4th measure downbeat, or the 5th measure downbeat. All of that space, the click keeps going, right? The time keeps going, but there's no point of reference between beat 1 and measure 1. Right? I'm playing with the click. The click is kind of keeping me in line, right? So what if I take away that? If I take it away for 4 measures, so you got this. You see what I mean? I'm creating, what I'm trying to do is improve my time by creating space between click number 1 and click number 2. Does anybody have any questions about that? Does that make sense to everybody? All you're doing is you're using a metronome. Instead of playing with the metronome, you're trying to give yourself a better keeps on repeating, right? Very good. Who's your teacher? Phenomenal. Phenomenal that you know that. That's good. All an ostinato is, guys, is just a repeating pattern. That's it. Real simple. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. My ostinato pattern is going to be the samba pattern for my bass drum. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my hands. So here you go. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to separate what's going on with my hands. Now, anytime you see right hand, we're going to put the right hand on the right cymbal. Anytime you see left hand, the left hand is going to go on the snare drum. Okay? Any questions about that? Right hand, right cymbal, left hand, snare drum. Okay? rock and hip hop? Jazz, good boy. Who else? Kurt?
Myself, I listen to everything.
Yeah? Rock and jazz, Dave?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay. Bob? All right, now, let me ask you this. Did you notice a difference between the answers when I started asking the guys that you've seen do clinics today, and yesterday? Did you notice a difference? What was the difference? Everything. If you guys want to be a working musician, it is imperative that you become familiar with every single style of music that you possibly can get your hands on. It's going to make you more marketable. Does everyone know what I mean by when I say marketable? In demand, right? Yeah. Okay, it's really, really imperative that if you want to be a working musician, and a drummer especially, you've got to become accustomed and familiar with all kinds of different music. Country. Let me tell you the gigs I've had this week, and none of them are the same, but there's been a few. I did a theater gig. I did a jazz gig. I did a church gig. I did an R&B gig. And that's all this week. I didn't overlap once, did I? So the reason that, and Kurt will attest to this, Bob, the reason that the guys in this town are working as much as they are is because they've learned and become familiar with all different styles of music. And I'm not telling you that I necessarily dig certain kinds of music over the others. I just know that for me, and I know to be a working musician here in this town, you've got to become familiar with all different styles of music. Somebody said hip-hop, jazz, smooth jazz, rock and roll, Latin. I mean, the list is a mile long of different styles of music that you can get into. Brazilian music, if you want to be specific, merengue, salsa, big band music. So it's just you're gonna do yourself a favor if you decide that you want to become a professional musician in this town or any town to really submerge yourself to make this, the whole process that you're going through right now should be a fun process for you. You're meeting new friends, you're learning new things. Everything that has to do with music is an art type of thing. It's not math. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's an art thing. It's more organic than that. It's more coming from your insides than that. Okay? So it's real important, even when you're practicing. And I know sometimes people think practicing is a drag. You got to find a way to make it fun. And I mean, just from the examples that I did, I really, to be honest with you, I got sick of doing all day long. I got sick of it. So what I did is I made more of a groove out of it, and I added my feet. That's kind of how I made it fun for me. Get together with your friends and play. We threw this together this morning. I called them up and said, hey man, you want to come on down and hang? So not only am I trying to give you guys some helpful insight, but I'm also hanging with my friends. You know what I mean? So what I try to do in every instance when I get out and play or whatever is I really try to make it a fun experience. Make it a positive experience. The best player that gets the job. It's not always the best player that gets the job. A lot of what the music business has to do with has nothing to do with your ability on your instrument. Are you punctual? Do you get to the job on time? If the job's at 10 o'clock and you get there at 10 o'clock, you're late. Okay? So, are you punctual? My suggestion, be early 10 times out of 10. Always be early. Okay? Are you reliable? Do you do what you say you're going to do? If you tell somebody, okay, I'll meet you at 7 o'clock, are you there? Do they know that they can rely on you? That's a big thing. It's a big thing. A lot of guys have lost a lot of gigs because of unreliability. What's that? Reliability. How is your personality? Are you able to get along with folks? Can you get along with people? Are you easy to get along with? Are you humble? You don't want to go into any situation acting like you're the man or you're the woman. You know, I'm the only one all puffed up. I'm the only one for this job. That is not going to get you work and is not going to gain you friendships by any stretch of the imagination. Would the pros agree with you?
Yes.
Okay. It's just huge, guys. I cannot tell you how important the non-playing side of music is. Okay? What's the quality of your equipment? When you show up for a gig, do the guys that are playing with you know your stuff's going to work? I cannot tell you how many times I've been on a gig where the guitar amp doesn't work, or somebody's cord is jacked up, or the drummer forgets his sticks. Not me, but a drummer. You know, you want to be prepared. You want to cover all your bases. So do your homework is basically what the vibe is, yeah. And you want to make sure that you're really going out of your way to be punctual, to be reliable, to be personable, to make sure that your equipment is up to par. And another thing is networking. And by networking, I mean gaining friends within the music industry. Just like all you guys are hanging out today, you all are, I'm assuming, all hanging out in the front. You're all friends, right? So what you're doing today is you're networking. You're hanging out with your buddies. You see what I'm saying? Camaraderie, or a brotherhood, or a sisterhood, than anything. Gaining friends in this industry and gaining people that can trust you and want to be around you is more important than any amount of money that you're going to make in this industry. And 9 times out of 10, if you do play it the right way, and you play it above the belt, and you play it, you know, unlike a competition, more like a friendship or a brother and sisterhood, you're going to wind up making the money. So the money's going to come through your actions, through the way you act toward people, to the diligency that you put into your practice routines. It doesn't need to be something where, you know, you're jealous of a person because they may be a little bit better than you. You can learn from them, just like they can learn from you. Okay? Like I said, and it's very important that you guys understand, I learn as much from my students as they learn from me. So it's very, very important to not make this out to be a big competition and I'm better than you and I can do this and you can't do this.